Hello, this is Rico Escalante from the iPad Studio blog, and this is the first in a series of interviews in which we'll have developers talk about their applications for the iPad, creative applications. The first interview goes to Sonoma Wireworks, a company based in California, and we'll interview Douglas Wright, who is the president of said company, and they created an application called StudioTrack, which basically turns your iPad into an 8-track recorder and mixer with effects, and we will begin now. So, hello, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is Doug Wright. I'm the president of Sonoma Wireworks.
Douglas, we're going to talk about your incredible app for the iPad. But first, would you mind telling us about your company and how it started?
Sure. I've been doing audio software since 1995 now, 16 years or so. Worked for a few different companies, Diamond Multimedia, BOS, and Bias, and always doing audio-related stuff. And I always wanted to make my own software. I'm a guitar player. I started playing guitar in college, and when I used DAWs, recording software, other stuff that was available, as an audio engineer and a programmer, I'm very distracted or interested in the technical parts, and so when I tried to record myself playing guitar, I'd be distracted by the technology, and the creativity would all go away very quickly. So I wanted to make an app for guitar players that would be more about just sitting and creating music and not about editing and tweaking and mixing like an audio engineer would. So I wrote Riff. Me and a couple other guys that started Sonoma Wireworks, we created an app called Riffworks, and we've been selling that since 2004, first via Line 6, and then on our own, distributed in retail stores and online, and is available for Mac and Windows. And then in 2008, in August, we decided that there was a 4-track, there's a missing space on the iPhone for a 4-track recorder, and that it would be fun to work on. And they had I think we decided to make the 4-track the week before they released the SDK that let you do 44 190 in 16-bit. It was just a lower bit rate or lower sample rate before that. So simultaneously, recording on the phone got better, and we started making 4-track. We released it in November, first week of November in 2008, and it did very well. And then when they announced the iPad, it was the day before CES started, I believe, and they announced the iPad, and then it would be 60 days before they released it, and then the following week is NAMM, the National Association of Music Manufacturers, big conference in LA, so we're there for a week. Then the following week we're recovering and talking about all the opportunities there were from that show, and the iPad came up, and we decided we should really be there for the launch of the iPad. So that's how StudioTrack was born.
What's your role in the company right now? I know you're the founder.
Yeah, founder, president, and software programmer, just like I was the day I started it. I write music software, and I never want to stop doing that, as much as people want me to do everything else.
I know you developed a 4-track for the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
And then when you saw the iPad, you said we have to be there. And did you actually have any idea of how it's going to work?
Well, we used the iPhone 3GS and the guesses as to the potential performance for the iPad, and we prototyped, doing 8 tracks of recording on the iPhone and adding different effects and profiled. We used the 3GS basically as a
testing ground. How difficult was it to develop without an actual iPad?
The simulator does a really good job of showing you what it's going to do, except for the actual CPU performance, because the simulator is 4 times faster than the actual device. But between having the 3GS to test on and the simulator, between those two environments, we could really do it. It would have been, nice to have it and see it on the iPad, but the phone is like close enough to the kind of experience that you expect, and the simulator does, a good enough job of showing you the way the graphics will work that we expected pretty good things. There was one thing that you just couldn't simulate, and that was with the pad, you can actually rotate the device 180 degrees. The simulator lets you rotate 90 degrees at a time, so you can rotate to the right to go from portrait to landscape and then landscape back to portrait. But on the pad, you can just flip straight from portrait to portrait upside down, and that caused some funny issues at first. But we figured it out.
Have you ever contemplated having a sort of place where musicians would display their work?
For RiffWorks, we have an online community called RiffWorld where people who use RiffWorks are posting their content, and we've been actually working really hard on the back end of that, and it's only an obvious direction to go to use the same back end and integrate the 4-track and the StudioTrack customers into the same online music sharing community. And so far for RiffWorks, we've made it the song posting all available for free, and we anticipate that same model, at least at the beginning, for 4-track and StudioTrack. So it's coming soon. I hate to promise features. You never know when things will actually work out, but definitely it's part of our plan.
And what's the address?
riffworld.com.
What would you say is your target market?
Musicians, individual musicians, not pros so much, but anyone who wants to write a song. We have, many great endorsements from popular musicians. Without, we didn't go out and look for these people. They told us, Al Di Meola, and then Trey Anastasio of Fish said in an interview with the Miami Herald that he's been using 4-track for the last year, and a couple of his new tracks from his upcoming record were done entirely on 4-track in a sushi restaurant.
Whoa. When I was blogging about your app, I was asking how long until an artist would release a album made with your application. You're telling me that it's already been done.
Well, definitely people are using it to write music. Whether they end up doing post-processing, the thing is, like, if you're a real artist with real engineers and a real budget to make records, in the end, it doesn't surprise me at all if you end up using, Pro Tools or some DAW or whatever professional equipment to edit or retouch or master or redo any of the tracks. People redo tracks on albums 10 times before they're happy with them. But the fact that you wrote an entire song at a sushi restaurant with your producer while you were hanging out because you were inspired and you were able to actually capture that